On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. My name is Don. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a consultant in life sciences, and I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Before we get started with the interview this morning, I just wanted to remind everybody I have a maturity assessment for organizations that are growing and scaling on my website. It's something that will help you just sort of see exactly where in your organization, in your company that you're trying to grow, where exactly you should be focusing and trying to apply your efforts to try and grow the organization as you get ready to get bigger. So today on the episode of the Life Science Success Podcast, my guest is Barb Pearlman. Barb is the president of Cambridge Scientific Products. She's also the CEO of Cambridge Scientific Labs and Watertown's first biotech incubator. Welcome, Barb.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for being on the podcast. And can you tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself?
My name is Barb. I'm from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And do you want to hear more about business or you want to hear my personal life?
Oh, much more about business.
Okay.
I mean, you had said that you grew up in Cambridge, though, right? So
I moved to Cambridge from St. Louis, actually.
Okay.
but I moved here for high school, and I went to the public alternative high school, which is a school called Pilot School, which was an alternative, sort of progressive school, and you called your teachers by your first name. And I went to a Cambridge public school, which was very diverse, and it was very mixed with everybody: Irish, Italian, people of color, poor people, wealthy people. It was a really nice way to learn about the world, which gave me, I believe, a lot of my core values, which is sort of diversity and helping to create opportunity. And ever since I was young, I always wanted to sort of start a business and employ all my friends. I'm like, I'm going to start a company. We're going to all work together and we're all going to make money. And I really didn't have anything growing up. I moved out of my family's home at the age of 16 and pretty much raised myself financially since that. So I've been working towards something for a very long time. And I've always had to work and take care of myself and put myself through school and whatnot. I left Cambridge and I went to New York City, where I went to the City University program. I went to Hunter College, or at least that's where I finished. And I worked in the film and video industry, and and learned and lived New York. And then back then, New York was getting a little crazy in terms of just crowdedness and just everything that was going on. And I was like, this is a little too much. I wanted to live someplace where if I got murdered, I'd make it to the newspapers. And I was like, I'm not want to make it to the newspapers if I live here and get killed. So I'm going to go back to Cambridge. So I went back to Cambridge, and I was always trying to come up with some idea of, what to do to make a living and make ends meet. And I also like to travel. So I've always tried to go and, see different parts of America and see different parts of the world. So on a side note, I got married very young. Right out of college, I got married and I had my first child. And it wasn't a good marriage, and it probably wasn't a very good decision in retrospect back then, although it worked out in the end. And so I find myself a broke single mom with a young daughter. And I worked in travel, and travel was great with great benefits, but it didn't make any money. And I kept trying to come up with different ways to make money. And I got a background in sales and I often waitressed. So waitressing teaches you to sell and speak in front of people, right? And then I got a job at a corporate travel agency where I ran the sales department, bringing in businesses who were traveling. So they gave me a lot of training. So my background became sales. I'm jumping around a little bit. I hope it makes sense but I'm trying. So I became a corporate travel agent, a corporate sales manager for a travel agency for about 7 years. And after 7 years, you kind of get this itch where you want to find something new. And I was starting to look what other opportunities were out there. And I was at Cape Cod. I was vacationing in Cape Cod, and we met a neighbor up there who had this company where he said he sold used medical equipment. And I was like, what a great idea. And he was in Boston. And I was like, we're in the hospital capital of America. This is a great idea. I said, I could probably do this. And I said, are you hiring? And he said, actually, I'm hiring. And he said, I'm looking for people to find equipment that we can resell. And I'm thinking to myself, and I had met a lot of people and doing corporate travel, I'd met a lot of people that were running the travel department for these corporations in Boston and different hospitals. And I was like, I know I can do this. And I worked and applied, and a few months later, I got the job working for this guy. And at that point, I thought it was more medical, like hospital equipment, but I learned over time that it was more research and it was more lab. And then while working for him, I learned that he was actually doing this in a very crooked way. He was taking laboratory equipment or medical equipment, he was shipping it to people without testing it. And I don't know what he was doing, if he was making insurance claims or taking people's money. I had found out that he was opening and closing under different names, and he was really running a really crooked operation. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? And he also became very abusive and very mean. And I'm like, no, and I'm a street kid. I'm like, no way did he just turn my life upside down. But I'm still thinking, what a great idea. So I had gone out there working for him, and I had found all kinds of equipment. And I came back to Everson. His name was, I won't even say his name. I came back and I said, I found this and I found this. And he's like, you know what? You're no longer going in the street. You're going to stay in the office, and you're going to make 100 phone calls a day. And you're going to prove to me that you made 100 phone calls a day. And I'm like, what? And I don't want to swear on your podcast, but I was like, and I'm like, okay. And I think he thought I was not very smart. And I was like, okay, let me see what's really going on in here. And I'm going to do what he needs me to do. And this was in November. I had started the job in November, and I found equipment throughout the course of November, and then obviously the holidays are starting. And I made my 100 phone calls a day, but I made friends through those. I found other dealers and other people and other contacts. And then I learned that he was selling faulty equipment. And I was like, let me open up my ears and just do what he wants me to do and open up my ears. And I was like, this guy has a great idea. Somebody should do this right. And I had some friends that were scientists, and I have a good friend. His name is Doug Gabler. He's living in China right now. And I said, Doug, this guy's selling faulty lab equipment, and you're a scientist. I was like, there's a need for this, right? And he's like, absolutely. I said, we could sell from Fresh Pond to Central Square, because at that point, those were the little biotech hubs in Cambridge. And he's like, and he was handy. He's like, I'm handy. I can tell you whether the stuff works or not. Most of the stuff in laboratory equipment gets hot or get cold or spins when it comes to general purpose equipment. So somehow along the way, I had met a guy who worked for a company called Biogen IDEC, and Biogen's a big company. He had this piece of equipment called a freeze dryer. And the model on used equipment is you sell things for half price. So this guy named Vincent Bologna, who was working for Biogen, had an unused freeze dryer. It was a Labconco freeze mobile, and list price was about $13,000. And I knew I could turn around and sell that for $6,000, $7,000, and it was unused, brand new in the box. And he said, you've got this. So I went to the bank. So I worked for this guy, and I said, I'm going to backtrack. Things were getting pretty ugly working for the guy that was a crook, but I was like, this is a good idea. We should do it. And my family's like, no, you got to wait. And I'm like, no, this is a good idea. We got to do this. And I was like, so anyway, to make a long story short.
I'd like to pause you there just for a second. So it's funny because just yesterday, I had a guest on, and we were talking about the same exact thing that our families do whenever they think that we're going to experience pain, and they try and hold you back, for a second, and instead of saying yes, go, instead it's like, we don't want you to experience pain, so we'd like for you to hold off. And that's what I heard in that moment just a second ago. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to kind of come back to that, because for anybody that is listening to these, one after the other, to me, that's the sort of tie from yesterday to today is that very moment.
Right. So also, I just got a little message saying that Brittany Greener was freed from Russia.
Oh, great!
Which is impressive. Yeah, I'm actually. Yeah, I can't even believe that. Yeah. But so I don't want that to distract me, because these notes pop up. So at any rate, just to make a long story short, I said there's no way we're going to do this, and I figured out. So then it was December, and this guy that I was working for was like running around his office and screaming and being really abusive. And I was like, he turned into, I actually think he got arrested. I don't even think, I think he was in prison for what he was doing. And somewhere around Christmas, I was talking to my friends, and we were coming up with a name, and we came up with the name Cambridge Scientific, which we thought was a great name. And we opened at the end of December. So from November to December, I sort of learned this business, learned that this guy was doing crooked, figured out the way to do it right, and said, let's do this and do it right. And I got together with, a couple friends to help me. And I got this one piece of equipment that I knew I could sell for $6,500. And I went to the bank and I took out a loan for $6,000. And I used this piece of equipment as collateral. And I had a friend that had a big old warehouse that he wasn't using, it was probably 10,000 square feet or 15,000, and he was using 300 square feet of it. He said, put a desk in here. You could have a fax line. And I started to talk to people about getting equipment that I could resell on a consignment basis. So Vincent gave me this freeze dryer on consignment. And then a handful of other people that I had met along the way while working for this guy, they all had all this surplus. They didn't know what to do with it. It was sitting in rooms. It was sitting in storage facilities. And I was giving them an avenue to sell it. And basically we made a consignment program where we were splitting it. And I took out this loan to pay my rent for 3 months. And my boss at the travel agency said, if it doesn't work, you can come back to the travel agency. So I was like, I was good for 3 months. The minute I opened the doors, the minute we opened our phone lines, we were two-fisting the phones. It was crazy. And I partnered with a dealer in New York called Long Island Scientific, who still we work closely with, who said I could use his inventory to add to my inventory. So all of a sudden I had a list of inventory, and it was from instant. Now I have no business. I have a business background from my sales training, but I don't really have very many management skills. The phones ringing off the hook. People are inquiring. They want to come things. It was, I mean, it was like that. It's almost like that still, but now we have a group of people working for us. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I was working hard, and the money was like, I could see that this was going to flow. The money was going to flow, and this was going to work. And that was like that was probably somewhere between December and January of that given year. And then a spot opened up for us in another place in Cambridge a few months later. And we were starting to get busy, and I was starting to bring in friends to help, which, remember, I told you back at the beginning, I was trying to employ friends, which I learned is not necessarily a good idea when you come to talk about some of the complications and things that you learn. But I had a brother who had just became an accountant, and he was looking for work. So a few months later, I said to my brother, I said, you need to come and look at this business. I need help. I need help with the accounting. And he strolled in his pajamas, like some sweatshirt. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he thought he's like, this is his little sister. And he's a lot older than me. He's almost 10 years older than me. So he's like thinking his little sister's got this joke of an idea. And he said, I'm going to come back tomorrow after day one. And then he came back after day two. And after like 4 days, he's like, I'm in. And so he became the CFO. And he's actually my partner in Cambridge Scientific right now. And he built us a website that I had got my first cell phone, and this was in 1998, I think. Like, I didn't even want a cell phone. And now my cell phone doesn't even leave me. It's just crazy. But he built our first website, and the next thing you know, we went nationwide. And the phones are still ringing off the hook. And equipment's flowing in because everybody has all this surplus, and everybody needs equipment. And it just worked. And the next thing you know, we're getting more famous, and we're getting more known, and we're selling all over Cambridge and all over the country, and even actually internationally. And what's great is because it gives me an opportunity. I love to travel, and I love to see other cultures. My family is a very diverse family. I live in a blended family. My world is very diverse, and it's very important. That style is very important to me. And so anytime I got a chance to set up a lab somewhere, like we set up the University of Athens, I was like, I'm there. I went there, and they took us around. But at any rate, we started to get more known, and people started to approach us, more and more. And then we started adding, so the years passed, because remember, this is now 20 years, right? So as years passed, my biggest complications was employees. Remember, I started to hire friends. And then I started to hire friends that I wanted to like have fun with, or people that I thought would be fun to work with.
Right.
And that was really hard. So through those years, if I want to talk about something that was complicated, it was learning how to hire the right people that were actually going to be good people with integrity, and that were going to work hard and work with you and form a team, as opposed to people that were just your friends that you were trying to help, who just didn't have the same ambition for you, or people that you thought were fun people to hang out with that weren't necessarily good people.
Yeah,
and
this
I've had
entrepreneurial
employees,
thing is not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's
right,
a tough world, and
I've
it's
caught
funny.
people.
I have a business coach as well, and my business coach and I have had numerous conversations about like expanding and partnerships and things like that, and I just, this idea of finding somebody that is that has the same passion, that has the same drive, that gets out there and gets
And the same
business.
values.
I mean, I don't need somebody, that sits in the background and does, surface level things. I need somebody that like is in there and executing and getting,
Right.
getting
It's hard to
going.
find.
And
It took
that's
it.
been my
It
biggest
literally,
challenge
right.
as well. Yeah.
It literally. Honestly, it really took me 20 years, maybe 15 years, to really figure a long time. I mean, I've had people selling stuff out of the trunk of their car. I've had people copy our database and try to open up their own. Nobody's been able to become me, and I'm happy. I mean, they were good. They knew what they were doing. There's a couple 1 and 2 man operations that are sort of running. Maybe they're running on eBay or something like that. But nobody's been able to create a Cambridge Scientific. People have done some sort of heart wrenching and underhanded things, and I just had to get over it.
Yeah.
But I learned. It took a long time. I'm wondering if business school that teaches you anything like that.
in our space, well, first of all, I mean, I've been through plenty of business school training, both with a bachelor's and an MBA. And I could tell you that there are things that you clearly won't learn about human interaction until you get out there and do it. So, I mean, that stuff you're just going to learn through the school of hard knocks. The other thing that I would come back to as well is that, I mean, in our space, so, I mean, I know Cambridge Scientific, as well, in terms of, the work that you guys do. There's another company, so Federal Equipment Company is on the other side, I think on the bioprocess side. So they're much more on the manufacturing equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So I've interviewed Matt Hicks previously as well.
Yeah,
so,
I know them. I know the company. I don't know them. We've had some possible times when we were going to work together, but they do a good job. The difference between Cambridge Scientific and a lot of the others is we have our own technicians. So everything that Cambridge Scientific is sold, refurbished and warranted with a 6-month, at least a 6-month parts and labor warranty. I kind of consider us like a Mercedes-Benz and BMW and Lexus of lab equipment. We only sell high-end brand names, right? And everything is comes recertified. So a lot of those other ones, Federal Equipment, Surplus Solutions, the ones that they work with, they do a great job and they're a great resource, but they sell as is, or they auction equipment. So they're just flipping it and the end user has to figure it out for themselves once they get it. But I have managed over the years to meet technicians. In fact, even back in the day, I met a man named Gaylord Garraway, who is the best technician in Massachusetts, maybe in the country, who partnered with us and became our technician and was the reason that everybody got really good lab equipment. And then we even got a body shop, and we got a guy who's really like an artist. So once Gaylord or another technician said everything was working beautifully, we would repaint it. We would fix every ding, every dent, every rust spot. We would paint it original color. So everybody got a piece of equipment that was as close to new as possible. And it's only a top name. We're not going to sell names that nobody heard of, and there's, in every type of equipment we sell, there's 3 top brands. And so we only sell those top brands. For microscopes, it might be Olympus and Nikon and Zeiss. For HPLC, it's Agilent and, Waters or Shimatsu. For mass specs, it's only Agilent and SciEx. For centrifuges, it's only Beckman and, Eppendorf and Thermo. So we really were selling top name brands and making them as close to new as possible and guaranteeing them, as opposed to Federal Equipment has very expensive. They do. I'm sure it's a great business because it's very expensive. It's probably easily acquired, and they're flipping it, and people can figure out how to handle it. But I don't know him personally. Just back to that note. So at any rate, we were doing. Go ahead.
So I was going to ask, who are your customers?
The world, every
Okay.
university in the United States, every startup in the United States, universities across the world, and typically small to medium-sized biotech companies. And when I say that, could be anywhere from 20 to 100. So, and universities. Universities need us, and they tend to be starting point, all over the country. Every MIT, Harvard, everybody in California, everybody from north, south, east, and west comes to us for equipment in Canada. Their science departments. And startups, it's great because our typical equipment is half price. So if you get $1 million grant, you can get $1 million worth of equipment from us as opposed to $2 million new. And most of our equipment is within, 5 years, give or take. So they're really getting on the younger side equipment. And we pride ourselves in selling, refurbished younger equipment. But it makes them money. If you can buy a centrifuge from me for, 5 or 10,000 that would have cost you 20, it's huge. Or you can come to us for a mass spec for 200,000 that would have cost you $500,000. The savings are tremendous. So for a startup, it's beautiful, right? And I'm telling you, the phones, my salespeople do not have to pound the pavement. They sit at their desks and they could work until 9 o'clock at night with the leads that pour in. They're the luckiest salespeople. I tell them all the time, and they don't believe it. I'm like, you do not have to hustle at all. There's no pavement pounding or anything like that. And I keep thinking,
phone
this
calls.
is right. No 100 phone. I tell them, I'm like, you don't have to do that. And a lot of it's digital now. We do have marketing people that do things digitally now, so it's a lot easier. But I tell them they have no idea how lucky they are, and I try to take care of them, monetarily wise.
Yeah.
But so we did a good job. We did it right. The job, and then we ended up, people started approaching us to sell our equipment new. So a couple of big names came to us to sell new. One of them is Ohaus. we formed a relationship with a company called Eppendorf, like big names, and they offered us a program on a trial basis that if we could sell a certain amount, they would continue. And every time they did it, we exceeded their goals. And so to bring us to today, we have a handful of new equipment and used equipment. And then we became a rep for Thermo. We sort of have a little mini partnership with Thermo. And that just took us to a whole another level.
Yeah,
And
they're
then we ended up,
everywhere. Thermo has a little bit of
right. Well,
everything everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, they really do. They actually, I remember when we first started, everybody was an independent company. There was Sorval, there was Beckman. Everybody had their own, and then and little by little, everybody turned to Thermo. So there's no more of all the independent ones; they're all Thermo. But to have them backing us was huge for our name, right? And then help brand us even better. And then we looked at our warehouse one day. We have a 15,000 square foot warehouse in Watertown, and it's filled to the brim. And it's filled with 30 of everything you can find in a lab. 30. And I say, when it comes to lab equipment, everything gets hot and gets cold and spins when it comes to general purpose equipment. And then you have your specialty equipment. So the specialty equipment is what we're trying to keep selling used because it's high value and it's specialty equipment. The general purpose, as of today, we're moving more into new. But at any rate, we have a warehouse full of 30 of every of this general purpose equipment. And we said to ourselves, what are we going to do? And one day the space opened up in our building and we said, let's rent this space, convert it to a lab, furnish it with everything that you could need, kind of like a furnished apartment, and see what happens. It was rented before the construction. It was rented in January and the construction wasn't finished until June. And now we have 30 of, now we have 25 of these with 7 more getting ready to open in the spring. And they're little 500, and that's when Cambridge Scientific Labs formed. So we were looking for an avenue for all this equipment that's sitting there because we have so much equipment. We have more than we need for the people that are asking for things. The warehouse is getting full, and I said we can make a startup, and we can make our startup affordable. Right, and the whole idea behind Cambridge Scientific is to make science affordable. It's to make science affordable to people who couldn't necessarily afford to get their ideas off the ground. And I try to support a lot of organizations. I try to support Seeding Labs, which which helps labs get started all in Africa and other third world countries, and they don't just send equipment there. They go out there and they set up the lab and they make sure the lab is operational. So you can't just send them anything. They know what they want for whatever work that they're getting. We try to donate to high schools, and we still couldn't get rid of our equipment. So this was the best idea yet because we're like, it gave us a way to use all this unused equipment. We were starting to move more into new equipment. So we were having, one of the reasons to move into new equipment is a lot of people, especially in China, are manufacturing equipment a lot cheaper. So you can get a lab, refrigerator for, $500 to $1,000 new, which used to be the price for it used. So it didn't make sense to sell it used. It didn't make sense to sell it used and pay a technician. These technicians are $100 to $300 an hour to refurbish it. It made more sense to move into new equipment. But at least this gave us a place to put this equipment and have it be operational rather than a landfill, right? Yep. And that's for Cambridge Scientific. And so little by little, one lab at a time, we just kept building another lab and another lab and another lab. And then fortunately, we had this great landlord who has a lot of money and a couple buildings and was like, you put this here, I'll pay for it. So he put the money up for us to get even more off the ground. And so we were able to build 10 more. And so now we're sort of flowing on our own, but it's been really great. It's been really great. It's great because we're having an avenue for our used equipment. We're helping startups. Our lab incubator is more affordable than a lot of the others because these people charge a lot of money. Most of the incubators are run by big companies, Johnson and Johnson, big groups with a lot of money. It's just us. It's us and our team of however many people helping it get together. And we
so recently, how many people do you have in the incubator now?
Employees, Cambridge Scientific has 15 employees. And as far as tenants, we have 25 tenants.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, and they range from 2 people to our biggest one is like 10 people. There tend to be 2 to 10 people getting an idea off the ground, right? And it's usually the second phase. They usually got something started, they've applied for some funding, and they've gotten a grant, and so they have money to get this off the ground, and they usually come to us for a year or two.
Because a lot of these incubators have a time limit where
we don't do that.
runs out, it's like
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, we don't do that. Although we recently
Yeah.
we've established ourselves enough that we're starting this. We're trying to come up with a name, where we're doing like we're talking about calling it the Sumner Prize, which is named after a man named Charles Sumner, who was, I think he was a senator or congressman back in like 1870s, and he formed the Civil Rights Act. And the Civil Rights Act was an act to make everything available to everybody, no matter what your background was. Um, and so one of the names we're thinking of is the Sumner Prize, which basically gives somebody a bench in our shared facility at no cost for 12 months.
Mm.
And we're looking at, and we really try to support underrepresented groups. So even in our incubator, we have a gallery where we put artwork up by underrepresented artists. We will only take an underrepresented, if we go with the name Sumner Prize, we will only take an underrepresented science group. To get their idea off the ground, and which that leads to my core values: diversity and equity. Like, I was in it before anybody was in it, right? This is how I grew up. This is what I grew up since I was like a kid, right?
Mm.
Our company, we have 15 employees at Cambridge Scientific. We probably represent 10 countries, and it never really changes from that, right? We've got Jamaican, Trinidadian, Haitian, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, gay, straight, Jewish, Irish. I mean, we're the world inside there, and that has been one of my most proud things. I can't think of the word, and I get no recognition for it, and I refuse to have. I can't stand it when the warehouse is full of people of color and it's all white people in the office. I'm like,
Mm.
I work so hard to not have that happen, and it drives me crazy when it happens, because it does happen, and that's a whole other conversation about why this happens in our world and our business, especially around here. But I'm trying so hard to have it not happen. Um,
Yeah.
and the diversity at Cambridge Scientific is one of the things internally I'm most proud of. I finally figured out how to hire good people who are helping us take it to the next level, and everybody's so happy. Like, they're happy in there. Like, I walk in and they're just everybody's kibitzing with everybody. And it's funny, I had this one girl, she's like, she's rocking it. And there's not many women in this industry. I'm probably one of the only women in this industry, except for this woman I hired as my assistant, who's now, I think she's going to run things in the future. Her name is Chloe. She's Vietnamese. I think she came here as a young child. And Vietnamese people are taught that Black people are gangsters and criminals, and right? And
Mm.
that's what they're taught. That's what they're shown in their country. So they come to this country with a really horrible impression about Black people. And she is like best friends with the Jamaican. And and the Jamaican is like, Jamaicans
Yeah.
are also like, all Asians are the same. Like, they in Jamaica, and I used to live in Jamaica, so I know they're like, everybody who's Asian, doesn't care if you're Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, you're all like Chinese, or right? They don't
Yeah, and
diversify.
people are people at the end of the day, right? I mean, we all can grow up with sort of biases, but then, as you get to experience the world and get to see that people are people, it's a totally different experience as
Right.
well.
And
Yeah.
so watching these two have become like best friends at work. Like, she's completely crossed over to see of a person of color who she loves, and he's crossed to see, they're not just one, they're several, and there's differences between them. So I love to watch their friendship. And I just love to watch how everybody in there, no matter where they come from, has a say. Nobody's disrespected, and the camaraderie.
So
And I wish I could make it bigger, and I wish I could bring that to the world, but most of the world doesn't care. But those are huge into my heart,
I
and
feel like
offering them the opportunity to make money. Oh, sorry.
we don't have many dogs barking on the show, but at the same time, I mean, I have Great Danes, so luckily you have a little bark.
Yeah, she's little. She thinks she's big.
Yeah.
That's about it.
So from my standpoint, in terms of the overall show flow, I think it's funny because as a host, I normally have to sort of guide the conversation a little bit more. And I feel like as we've sort of listened to your story, you've answered an awful lot of my questions. The last two, I would, from the overall interview standpoint, that I just would want to sort of make sure that you feel like you fully answered from your perspective, are the biggest opportunities and the biggest challenges that you've seen with both companies that you have, do you feel as if that, you've provided enough information with regards to the things that you've seen in the industry in terms of opportunities and challenges? Because I feel like we've covered, an awful lot with regards to that as you talk through, what you did with Cambridge Scientific Products, and then, also just the overall, seeing a challenge with the equipment building up and then moving into the incubator as well.
Well, if I understand your question correctly, the opportunity, it's really about, I'm an opportunist, right? And my favorite things to do is get an idea and be like, that's a great idea, or we can do this here, or we can bring Cambridge Scientific here, right? And in America, biotech's an opportunity, right? So it's not that I'm a scientist. It's not that I love science. I probably didn't do very well in science in school, but I saw biotech taking over Cambridge, and it was an opportunity, and I knew that I could do it and I could make money. And now I see it in and I try to tell people, who are here, who are struggling, look at this world. It pays more. It offers more opportunity. And I love to see people who take an opportunity and run with it. Just to backtrack on that, like one of the guys that first started working here, this Jamaican guy, his name is Edric, came to us when he first moved here from Jamaica, right? And he did not know anything. I'm not even sure he was really like a great reader, right? And I told him about this school, and I sent him to this school, and he went to that school and he graduated, and I think he took after high school degrees, and now he owns like 2 properties. The kids are in college. He has a beautiful home in Jamaica, and like he ran with it. And I just love to watch people take advantage of an opportunity and have it make the world that they want for themselves. So that's sort of biotech. Biotech's an opportunity. It's an opportunity in this country every which way. And I grabbed onto it, and I got into it at a good time. And sometimes I don't know what else I would have done because my history, I was a rapper and I did voice work, and I was in film and video, and how the hell I'm in science, nobody. Not only that, I'm kind of a hood, I'm from not really the streets, but I was definitely a gnarly young child and got myself in a handful of trouble. Nobody can believe I am where I am today, considering where I come from. But biotech is a really great opportunity. Even now, we've gone to Florida and we're partnered with Florida to try to increase, just to help. But this is America, and it seems to be a focus of our country. And I don't know, if that's what you're talking about in terms of opportunity. It's a great opportunity, and I can find offsprings from it left and right. I can use it to travel. I partnered with a group in Rome who takes flow cytometers that nobody wants in America anymore, and he's an engineer, and he refurbishes them and he distributes them in southern Spain and other parts in the Middle East. So like that was super fun. I was able to go to Rome, meet with them. We have this back and forth where I send him what he needs. I help, and it's been great. And same thing with like Israel and then Korea. I was in Korea last summer. We went to Korea to look at the products that they manufactured so that we could buy from Korea as opposed to China. And now we have like 4 things that are made in Korea that we bring over that actually had Cambridge Scientific's name on it. So biotech is just an opportunity, period, hands down for anybody. And there's so much. It's unbelievable how much money is in this world. We have a tenant that just got a $97 million grant. Like, it's just weird. What do you do with $97 million? We had a tenant that made one of the first COVID test kits, and they blew up. I heard the owner like packed up and moved to Miami. Like, so it's just such an opportunity to grow from nothing to something. But if you're just working a basic job, like if you're a receptionist at a biotech company, you're making $25, $30 an hour. If you're a receptionist anywhere else, you're making $15 an hour. So I'm just like, it's just that world, and whatever reason, and I don't know the ins and outs of everything, but it's an opportunity. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
But
so there are 3 questions, Barb, that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Ideas that I think that will work, and that I can collaborate with people to help make them feel good. And like the incubator. Okay, so our first one I did on my own with my partner, but the second one I opened up to my key employees and some of the contractors. And I was like, you want in? So I took the team of contractors and I said, they want in. And I took a couple key employees. And now our second incubator, which is, so this Cambridge Scientific Labs 1 and this Cambridge Scientific Labs 2 is owned by a team of us. And we're talking about a Cambridge Scientific 3, which I will open up to more of them. I love that. First of all, it helps me get help, but it's also putting money in more people's pockets that deserve it. and work hard and help it. I like the fame and glory because a lot of people, I probably shouldn't be where I am today based on my childhood. So I kind of like, I do like the fame and glory.
Mhm.
That's what kind of inspires me. And then just new ideas that get me traveling, like the Korea idea or the Florida idea, or the whole program in Rome, like just an idea that's going to help somebody. I live to help people. So
Yeah.
if Rome is helping people that wouldn't be able to help, great. This I keep calling it the Sumner Prize. I'm not sure that we're going to call it the Sumner Prize, but I can actually give somebody a bench in our shared space, which gives them access to. I could list off the piece of equipment. I'm not sure you'd know it. It's going to be huge for somebody. The fact that I can give people jobs that take, like, my people get paid well. They have to work for it, but they have the opportunity to make a lot of money, and that I can offer that to somebody who needs it and can help their family. I want the domino effect. I want to help somebody that helps somebody and help somebody, and I want to help people that don't have the chance to be helped. I know plenty of people that are privileged and are doing well. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the people that don't have a chance. And those people are having less and less chances as the world gets separated between rich and poor. And that's my heart. And the challenge is when you try to help people who really don't want to be helped or don't really care or about what you're doing, and you get burned. It's the burn. It's the
Yeah.
burn when you hire the wrong people. It's the burn when you have, trust in somebody that isn't necessarily trustworthy.
Yeah.
I was
And what
watching a show with
concerns
my
next
what?
question was what concerns you? Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
My next question is what concerns you?
dying.
Mm.
I don't want to die.
So
I I
at
have
first you were wanting to make sure that you were murdered somewhere where you would be remembered, and now now it's dying.
yeah. I don't want to leave. I hate. I got a known this years ago that could have killed me and it didn't, and and I survived and I'm doing phenomenal. But I watch my kids. I've got 3 kids and I have some kids that are like that became part of my family, and I have a 13-year-old and a couple of kids that are in their 20s, and I want to just watch. I'm watching them grow and blossom and learn, and I just love it. And we're very close, and I don't want to, they're going to have kids, and I just want to watch it happen to them, and I want to watch it happen to them, but I want to stay right here. You see how I am right now? I'm, I'm fit, I'm strong, I can joke and mingle. I like to go out, I like to, socialize, I like to mingle, and I, I want to stay right here and do this for as long as I possibly can. Getting, and like, I guess, getting old. I'm very scared of getting older and not able to have the sound on your body.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear. And that, for
Yeah.
anybody that knows.
Yeah, after watching my parents, I mean, I don't blame you for that. My parents were, my mom's in her 90s. My dad is past now. He passed at 90. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in aging that you learn as well as you watch other people. My last question for you. Go
Right,
ahead.
and that it
Sorry.
ends, and no, but and that there is a time limit that it does that, and people do leave, and people. My mom is 87, and she smoke. She likes to party. She likes her little edibles. She goes out this weekend. I was gonna bring my son over to her. She's like, I'm going to a party. I'm like, she's 87, and she goes and she travels and she goes. So that's my inspiration. So I'm hoping, But go ahead.
That's great. Last question. What excites you?
Opportunity, as I told you, opportunity. Watching people take the ball and run with it. Opportunities to travel, personally, opportunities to travel, but just watching somebody take the ball and run with it just makes me so happy
Yeah.
and excites me.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot of fun watching people grow. Yeah, I
right,
agree.
right.
And then just one last question, I guess, since you've mentioned travel so often, is there any place that you'd really love to travel that you've not been yet?
Probably, I want to say Africa. For years, I've always wanted to go and spend more time in Africa, but as I get older, like, I'm more reluctant, and I want to get rid of that reluctancy and actually go do it because I imagine I lived in the Caribbean. I spent a lot of family from the Caribbean, and so I've spent a lot of time in different places out there. I imagine there is some similarity, so I feel like I would be like just fine. But some things I imagine are pretty hard,
Mm,
and I want to be able to handle that without fear,
right.
that hardness. Um, and I don't know. I don't the wor I'm going. I don't know because my guess is wherever I'm going. I'll go. Asia was on my list, and I landed in Asia.
Yeah.
In China. I don't know. I can't really think anywhere. You tell me we're going. I talked to a man in Uruguay a month ago, and he's setting up a bunch of labs in Uruguay. He's a technician, and I was like, as soon as the deal closed, I'm going to Uruguay. Uruguay was not on my list, but as
Mm,
soon as the opportunity arose, I was like, we're going to Uruguay. I have an opportunity to go to the Philippines to do. I always mix it with work and play, right?
yeah.
So I usually go wherever the opportunity arises, and if somebody says let's go, and I can fit it in, I go. And I have one kid left, and as soon as he's old enough, I don't know if I'll be home much.
Well, I
But
know
I
how
like to see other
important
cultures.
I know how important family is to you as well. So yeah, that's I
But
mean, I'm sure you'll travel, but also want to keep them center. So Barb Pearlman, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and telling me all about all the things that you're doing with Cambridge Scientific Products as well as Cambridge Scientific Labs. So thank you so much for that.
yeah, no, you're very welcome. I'm excited. I was excited to be here, and I hope it was interesting, and I hope I was not all over the place because I can definitely talk like we're all over the place. Um, and and the goal is to become a mini thermo. We'll see if we can do something.
Well, good luck
We'll
with
see
that. I
what
appreciate
we,
I
yeah.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.